Hi everyone, welcome to this week's talk. As you should know by now, my name's Rebecca. I'm the Bee Biosecurity Officer for Queensland. We're joined tonight by Kelly, who's helping us out with the production, as well as Kerry, and hopefully we might get Patricia, one of our apiary officers, to help us out with the questions. Not too many announcements tonight. Next week's talk, we're going to be focusing on good bee husbandry, particularly good if you're new to beekeeping, but even if you aren't, I'm hoping to have lots of tips to help out even experienced beekeepers to have better husbandry of their bees. Because if your bees are strong and healthy, then they're less likely to have any pests and diseases impact on them. But let's jump right into tonight's talk, which is record keeping and note taking for beekeepers. Now tonight it's going to be a little bit different from some of our previous talks because I'm really hoping to get some feedback from you guys out there who do beekeeping. I've got some templates I've put together for recording and note taking for beekeepers, and I'm hoping to get your opinions and some information back from you guys. Unfortunately, I can't attach them to the talk tonight, but I am going to send them out to all of the mailing lists. So if you're on the mailing list, I'll send them through to you. If you're not on the mailing list, Kelly's going to put up my email in the question and answer section. Just send me a quick email and I will make sure that you're added onto that mailing list. So, why do we need to keep records as a beekeeper? Well, it's important to have them to understand if your hive is healthy and productive. It can also help you catch any problems that your hive is having quite early. Those little things that you think, oh, maybe that might be an issue, make a note of them and you'll know then later to go back and check on them. It's really good to have a clear understanding of the timelines and the risks associated with those if a problem does occur, particularly for us at Biosecurity. If our beekeepers are keeping good records and we do have an incursion of a new pest or disease, it allows us to go back to those beekeepers and say, okay, when did you last check your hive and what kind of checking did you do? Did you do a sugar shake or an alcohol wash? So if we get something like varroa, something nasty, we're able to track when it arrived in different areas and how long it might have been around. And that's invaluable information for us to be able to come to a better idea of where we need to do surveillance, how much surveillance we need to do and how far that pest might have spread. So it's really, really useful information for us. It can also be important to help you identify if you're complying with the code of practice and any quality assurance programs that you might be a part of, particularly if you might be taking your bees interstate. You'll have to show when you're going to New South Wales or Victoria that you are applying, you are adhering to the code and that you've got documentation to show that. So that's another key one there too. And it also can be a great way to provide evidence that you're meeting your general biosecurity obligation. So you're doing all those key things that you need to do to make sure that you're not having any risk associated with your beekeeping activities in terms of pests and diseases. Now, I've identified a few different types of records that you will have to think about keeping as a beekeeper. Now, these include apiary records, inspection records, training and certification records, and you may also consider keeping records about resources or floral or seasonal records. And I'll talk a little bit about each of these different types in just a minute. But let's first talk a little bit about organising those records. Now, it doesn't really matter how you do this, as long as it's something that works for you and is going to be useful in the long term. So you might keep electronic or handwritten records, or you might even use an app. Now, there are quite a few apps out there. I've listed just 2 here, but there are heaps of different apps out there that help beekeepers to keep track of what they're doing. And most of them are really quite effective in terms of the information. Of course, I'm sure as you will know, I always find when I'm out with my bees and I'm covered in honey and I'm sticky and I've got gloves on, last thing I want to do is get my phone out. So sometimes apps are great and sometimes they can be a little bit tricky. So you may want to combine your app with a notebook or with some other kind of record keeping system. Excuse me. Now, often we have a lot of different things that you want to make sure that you've done when it comes to checking your hive. And you may want to do this by keeping a checklist that you